My name is JennStarr, as you may remember from the first day of class. Please forgive the background. I have the flu. It finally caught up with me, and so I have kind of fortified myself in my bedroom today so I don't get anybody else sick. So please forgive this. I have normally a more professional background, and I may be coughing throughout the video, so forgive that too. So my first video for the MIC498 class, and I want to talk to you about 3 things that I think are important to know about HIV. So the first thing is the fact that it's still here. So when I was younger, as a little kid, I remember there being a lot of fear, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, there's a lot of fear about HIV. I heard a lot about it in TV shows, and when I took my sex ed class in high school, it was almost completely about HIV/AIDS, it seems, and that fear was really effective at keeping me safe. And I feel like I was hearing about it my whole childhood. I remember being a little kid and being scared that I might have it, even though that wasn't really possible. But it seems like people just stopped talking about it all of a sudden, and I'm not quite sure why that happened. But it is still around. I think people assume maybe that the dialogue stopped because there were no new infections, or the new infection rate had declined, or that people just weren't dying from it anymore. But the fact is, it's still around, just as strong as it ever was. There's like 1.2 million people living with HIV/AIDS in the U.S. I hope I'm getting my numbers right here. There's like 50,000 new cases a year, and that's a steady number. That's not going down. And a lot of those are young people, which to me speaks to the fact that these people are not getting important information. So, like I said, when I was in high school and I took my sex ed class, I got a lot of information about HIV, and I felt a lot of fear, but I also felt like I had the information I needed to keep myself safe. A couple years ago, 2 years ago, back when I was a cross-cultural research anthropology major, I took a research class and did a study on the level of knowledge that deaf people have about STDs. And so I had a hearing sample and a deaf sample, and I administered the STD-KQ questionnaire, which is a widely used questionnaire to determine knowledge about STDs. And even though, of course, the deaf culture was lacking pretty significantly in information, but the hearing culture, the hearing sample also was too, which was really surprising. There was some pretty basic information that these young people were really fuzzy on, and I was really surprised by that. Seems like there's been a big backstep in the amount of information that young people are acquiring about HIV, and that's a problem. And I think that it probably accounts for the large percentage of young people that are becoming infected. So the second thing I want to talk about is transmission. So, or how the HIV virus is acquired. So this is important not just for prevention, but also for controlling the stigma that surrounds those who have the HIV virus. HIV is not very resilient. It does not live outside the body very long. It needs its host. So you're not going to get HIV from a doorknob or a toilet seat or silverware. It has to be blood-to-blood contact or bodily fluid contact with mucosal membranes in the body. So intravenous drug use, which is blood-to-blood contact, you're directly introducing the infected blood into the body. Vaginal anal sex is introducing the vaginal anal secretions and semen directly into mucosal membranes in the body. It has to be that kind of direct contact that introduces the virus. So vaginal, anal sex, oral sex has a level of risk to it too, though it's much lower. And intravenous drug use. It used to be that blood transfusions were a risk, but there's enough protections in place now that's not really an issue anymore. So vaginal, anal sex, and intravenous drug use are the main ways that people contract the HIV virus. But kissing and hugging, obviously, sleeping with somebody, cuddling, living with somebody, sharing their bathroom, there's somewhere other plates, you're not in danger of contracting the illness that way. In fact, there's even treatments now that you can significantly lower the chances of giving your sexual partner the illness as well, although barrier protection is still highly recommended. But we've come a long way with those kinds of treatments. Anyway, so the third thing that I would want to talk about is the fact that HIV/AIDS is completely preventable. There's no cure for HIV, but there is prevention. So we can cure it through our own personal behavioral changes. And all three of these things that I've said go together. So it all starts with that information. That dialogue has to come back into the mainstream. We have to start talking about this again. And I'm a huge advocate, and you guys may hear this throughout the semester, I'm a huge advocate of sex ed, early sexual education. For a long time, it seems like there's been this argument between the conservatives and liberals or whoever about sex ed. Is teaching our kids about sex, telling them to go have it. It's ridiculous. But, while people are having this conversation, 12-year-old kids are going out and having sex and getting AIDS. 13-year-old kids are getting AIDS. Or, I'm sorry, not AIDS, HIV. So this dialogue needs to come back in the mainstream, and people need to get over their fear of talking to young people about safe sex. It's absolutely critical for for prevention and for the future of this virus, that we talk to young people and we teach them how to be safe. Because the fact is that this is not some virus that human beings are just stuck with, like the cold or the flu. We're stuck with those. I'm sure at some point some genius will come up with some kind of an inoculation, but we're pretty much stuck with those for now. But we are not stuck with HIV. We are not stuck with AIDS. All we have to do is change our behavior, and we can get rid of this. And it can be just a dark mark on human history like the plague. But we have to change our behavior. And the only way we can change our behavior is to get that information out there. So there you go. Those are the three things I want to talk about. I think it's important that information get taken back into the mainstream, that the conversation be reawoken, and that young people get that important information. And the issues of acquiring the illness need to stop being so fuzzy, so that there's not so much stigma surrounding the illness. And then people also need to know that we have complete control over the prevention of this illness. So thank you for watching. Again, sorry for being sick in the messy background. And I hope you guys have a good weekend, and I will see you next week.